Welcome back, YouTube. Adam here, and this is the episode that you have been waiting for. It's episode 4 of the Pack Kit build series. This episode is the episode where we will be hacking up this beautiful purple bus, so stick around. Welcome back from the intro, guys, and before we get things fired up, I just want to highlight this killer display ramp that was provided to me by Derek Johnston from Spiderpig-RC, Workz, and Fabrication. Spiderpig has been around a long time, and Derek has got a lot of knowledge under his belt. If you like what you see there, give him a follow over at his Facebook page where you can pick up any of his goodies. Link in the video description. Speaking of the video description, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit those alert bells so that you get notified anytime we go live or release a new video. Let's begin talking a little bit about how exactly I'm going to hack up this purple body. So before I begin, I want to talk about a couple of the tools that I plan to use in this process. Now, there are really only 4 ways that people typically hack up their hard bodies. Number 1, they use a Dremel. I don't recommend that. It leaves like a melted plastic edge that gets all funky. It is not precise. It's great for quick cuts, but not a precise way to do things. I would say the second best option to that is probably a hacksaw blade or some type of specific styrene saw. There's a bunch of hobby saws out there. Just a regular old hacksaw blade works quite well on bodies like this and does the job very well. It's flexible, so you can get into places. It's small, and it does a really good job with what you got going on. If you want fine precision and you want to do a really good job, you can use regular old sewing thread. And so I'll talk about those 3 instances, and I will use the 2 that I like throughout this process. The other thing that I also do that a lot of people don't is I will sometimes use snippers. If I have a place where I can do it, it'll speed the process up and allow for a nice clean cut. I'll probably use the snippers on things like the pillars and so on and so forth when I chop the top of this build. Lastly, a good hobby knife is something that you would maybe need to help you out through this process. Now, those are the tools that will be used to cut. However, this is the first tool that needs used. This is just straight up a black Sharpie. Any marker will do. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a Sharpie. But the first step to any good fabrication job with a plastic body is to mark your cut lines so you know what you're going to do. Let's hop over to my area for marking down my cut lines. I'll show you that process, talk a little bit about what I got going on up here, and share all of that with you. Okay guys, welcome back, and I am about ready here to make some marks on this body so I can hack it up for you. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the most obvious cut line, which would be this line right at the bottom of all of the windows. That's where a bed would line up on any typical regular truck, and so therefore I am going to definitely have a cut line there. I am just going to take my Sharpie, maybe here, oh it's working, and draw a nice line that goes right back through all of that. Now, one thing that I do know is that I am going to retain this back piece and this back pillar here because I'm going to take it and move it up here on the back of my cab. However, I don't know how much of the cab is going to remain at the moment. You see, a lot of what happens when I do builds is that I kind of just go with how everything lines up and how it flows together. So I leave things maybe a little big on cuts or a little bit vague in certain areas, and that allows for me to have the absolute most opportunity to do whatever I need or want to in the future. Now, I do know that I am going to cut out all of this stuff that's in here. So my line can come up and it can go right here like so. I also know that since I'm going to use this back corner, I'm going to make a cut like this that comes straight off of here down into this area. In fact, I might even make it a little bit further forward than that to determine if I want to use this rear window piece. So this whole piece will get cut out of here. Additionally, I'm going to be cutting off all of this all the way around the back, and keep going all the way around the back to the other side. Now there's a reason for that. That's where my bed is going to go, and it's going to give me the back of my cab. And it will allow things to look the way that I want them to look. So after I finish drawing my line here, where'd it go on the other side? This door jamb. Up and over that. And then back here we decided to go on this side of the pillar. So on and so forth. I'm not worried about any of the stray lines, any of the stray marks, or anything like that, because at this point all we're really trying to do is eliminate this area of the truck. So I think what I'm going to do next is cut that out before I go any further and try to do anything else. Now, probably the easiest way to do this, to be honest with you, is the hacksaw blade. I'll open up this little tailgate piece that kind of comes up here, and hopefully I can leave it and put it back in there at the other end of what we've got going on. But I think the hacksaw blade will allow me to cut right along this line all the way up there, and then I can just hack straight down. Once I have that piece off, I can go from there. Now I'm going to quickly take the windows out because I don't know how I want to hack that piece of plastic up quite yet. One of the things about the Volkswagen bus builds that most people don't do is lower that roof line. They don't do that for a couple of reasons, I'm guessing. One, chopping the top of this has all kinds of complicated factors when you factor in how this window frame comes back together. And two, they probably just don't think to go to that level. Most people will cut the bed out, but won't kind of chop bodies down or do any of that. And since I like to be unique, apparently I'm a glutton for punishment, and I am going to go that route. I just quickly removed the window piece, and one of the things that I didn't realize is that all of this is currently on the window itself, and it just kind of sits up there inside of the body. That honestly will probably make my chop easier. I wasn't sure how I was going to get all of that to line up, or it might make it harder. I haven't determined quite exactly what's going on there yet. So we're going to set that aside. That's not going to affect anything that I'm doing right now with this saw blade, and this should make relatively quick work, but not super quick work of what's going on here. So to get started on something like this, I would just pick the easiest point to access, which is kind of back here in this corner, and I would get my saw blade ready, find the right spot, and you just saw it like you would any other item that you would be cutting. And so as you can see, it doesn't take much effort, just slow strokes so that you get a nice accurate cut and kind of go on from there. So you get the gist of that, you get the gist of how to run the saw blade. I just quickly removed the window piece, and one of the things that I didn't realize is that all of this is currently on the window itself, and it just kind of sits up there inside of the body. That honestly will probably make my chop easier. I wasn't sure how I was going to get all of that to line up, or it might make it harder. I haven't determined quite exactly what's going on there yet. So we're going to set that aside. That's not going to affect anything that I'm doing right now with this saw blade, and this should make relatively quick work, but not super quick work of what's going on here. So to get started on something like this, I would just pick the easiest point to access, which is kind of back here in this corner, and I would get my saw blade ready, find the right spot, and you just saw it like you would any other item that you would be cutting. So now that you get the gist of how all of that works with the hacksaw blade inside of there, I am going to film a quick time lapse of me cutting this thing out very carefully so that I don't break off the front portion of what we've got going on there with the cab. I just paused my time lapse because I noticed something funky was going on. I'm not sure how well you can see it in the camera, although every time I say that you can see it quite well. If I can get it to focus there. My line is not where it's supposed to be. My cut line is significantly below where I wanted to be at. And although that is not a major issue, and with my building skills I can take care of that, I thought this was an opportune time to talk about the thread technique, because I can use it to get me back on track. So all you do when using thread to cut any kind of styrene, ABS, plastic, whatever any of these hard bodies typically are, is that you take a piece of thread, which I'll get right now, give me just a second, any just normal sewing thread, nothing fancy here, nothing special. And I'm sure the thread's going to be hard to see because it's white and this background is white. However, you just take a piece of thread, wrap it a little bit around this hand, wrap it a little bit around this hand, put it in where you want to cut at, and with a sawing motion, you just cut the plastic. Now, I will give you a heads up and tell you that for sure you're going to break some thread. And it is kind of one of those things that you have to learn by feel. The thread works best when it starts to get a little warm and it kind of melts its way through the plastic. As it's melting its way through the plastic, the tension starts to increase. That's when you need to loosen up one of your ends, slide your thread down just a little bit, and use a new piece. That will do wonders for you, and this allows you to go in any direction at any time in any way, where this blade, for the hacksaw blade, makes it a little difficult to accomplish that task. So let me wrap up my thread here and kind of feed it into the cut I've got going on, which one of the hardest things you'll see here with anything when you do it with thread is trying to hold stuff in place to make it happen. So get that going, and I apologize if this is moving all over the place because I don't have a good way to hold it and run the camera and all that stuff. So I'm going to use this pillar up here to support me, and I just run the thread back and forth. It will start this amazing squeaking sound like you hear right now, and then it will start to cut its way through the plastic. So there are a few factors of things that I need to continue on before I go any further. One is I need to separate this from all of this center section so I can see exactly how much of this rear part of the roof line I want to attach to the front part of the roof line. Additionally, I need to cut right here on this line so that I can add my tailgate back to the back of my body prior to hacking that all up and narrowing things in. I'm just going to take the hacksaw, cut through this guy. In fact, I'm just going to stay on that one side of the pillar like I said. That way I can get a good look. Okay, those pieces are gone. Now I can get a good look for how all of this will mount up in the future, and how much of the second door I want to have or don't want to have. I think if I'm smart about body lines, I can cut out of this cab to get this body line to this door, right, this panel right here, to line up to this panel. And it should be the same on the other side, although no, it's not. It doesn't have a body line there. So this side doesn't matter nearly as much as getting the other side to line up. So if I hack out of this piece right here, I should be able to mount up with what's going on and get that to fit in there. I have managed to figure out how much of the cab I am keeping. I was able to cut and get my door lines to line up, so we're going to have a double cab, and that double cab should line up quite nicely when I'm done. From here back will be a drop bed, and it also has to be extended out longer, but that's for another portion of what we've got going on. The tailgate has been cut out of the back of the cab and is ready to be inserted into the bed itself. That should allow for the back of the truck to match up very nicely. Okay guys, that pretty much does it for this episode. So far I have hacked off a big chunk of the roof, reattached the rear of the cab super permanently here with my blue painter's tape, and just to see where I ended up with all my cut lines, so on and so forth. As you can see, my door line should match up really quite well. I can do whatever I need to in there to manipulate its distance. I've got a little hole in the roof to fix. I have to chop the windows. I gotta put the tailgate back on. And then once I fix all of that, get it all put back together, I gotta cut it all back apart again because I gotta chop the roof. I've gotta narrow the bed, and I have to build a whole bed floor and all of that stuff. So this was really just the beginning of cutting things apart. I hope that you gained a little bit of insight and knowledge into how exactly to cut bodies apart and maybe why. I don't know that my method is the best or the easiest or the smartest way to do it, but it is what I do and how I've done it in the past, and I've had fairly significant amounts of success with it, and I think that it goes quite well. Now I will tell you that when you go to reattach things, that's where the fine-tuning and all of that comes back into play. Your attention to detail while all of your cutting goes on makes life a whole lot easier when it comes to gluing, shaping, and fixing everything for final paint and prep in the future. If you like what you saw in this video, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you smash that alert bell so that every time that I post up a video, or the next time I post up a video about this, you get notified about the video as soon as it goes live. Lastly, go down in the video description below, check out Spiderpig-RC, Machine Works, and Fabrication for these killer display ramps and his other goodies that he's got going on. I'll be displaying them as I do future videos and talking a little bit about them and their use and their functionality. Thank you guys for tuning in, and as always, I appreciate each and every one of your views. Make sure you catch the next episode, in episode 5, where we begin to kind of put some of this mess back together, or I don't know, maybe tear it apart further. Thanks. I look forward to seeing you guys all in the next one.